The cattle were dying, and Amelia Montgomery had 3 days to get them to higher ground before the drought turned her life's work into bleached bones scattered across cracked earth. She stood in the pre-dawn darkness of her ranch outside Georgetown, Colorado, watching the starved herd mill restlessly in the corral, their ribs showing through hide that should have been sleek and healthy. It was August 1878, and the summer had been merciless. Her husband Thomas had vanished 6 months ago, riding out one February morning to check the fence line in the mountains and never coming back. They had searched for weeks, but the snowstorm that followed his departure had covered any trail he might have left. Now she was alone with 200 head of cattle, a ranch that was falling apart, and debts that mounted higher every week. She pulled her worn leather gloves tighter and walked toward the barn, her boots crunching on ground so dry it had forgotten the meaning of moisture. The mountains surrounding Georgetown rose like ancient sentinels in the distance, their peaks still holding snow even in the brutal heat of summer. Those peaks had taken her husband, and now they mocked her with their beauty and their secrets. Thomas had been everything to her, her childhood friend who had become her lover, the man who had promised her a life of adventure and prosperity out here in the Colorado Territory. They had been married for 3 years, building this ranch from nothing, and she had loved every moment of it. Even the hard moments, even the times when money was tight and the work seemed endless, had been bearable because they were together. But now the ranch was a prison of memories and impossible tasks. She was 24 years old, and she felt ancient. The barn door creaked as she pushed it open, and the familiar smell of hay and leather greeted her. She had 4 horses left, having sold 2 to pay the feed bill last month. Her best mare, Daisy, nickered softly as Amelia approached her stall. She rested her forehead against the horse's warm neck for just a moment, allowing herself the briefest instant of weakness before straightening her spine and getting back to work. There was no room for weakness anymore. No room for grief or fear, or the crushing loneliness that threatened to swallow her whole every night when she lay in the bed she had once shared with Thomas. She was saddling Daisy when she heard the sound of hoofbeats approaching the ranch. Her hand instinctively went to the rifle she kept propped against the barn wall. Strangers were not uncommon out here, but they were not always friendly. She had learned to be cautious in the months since Thomas had disappeared. There were men who thought a woman alone was easy prey, and she had already run off 2 drifters who had gotten ideas about taking what was not theirs. But when she stepped out of the barn with the rifle held loosely in her hands, she saw a lone rider approaching slowly, his hands visible on the reins, his posture relaxed and non-threatening. He was leading a pack horse, and even from a distance she could see he was dusty from long travel. The rising sun backlit him, turning him into a silhouette, but as he drew closer she could make out more details. He was tall in the saddle, wearing a battered brown hat and a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. A gun belt sat low on his hips, but his hands stayed on the reins. He stopped about 20 feet from where she stood and touched the brim of his hat in a gesture of respect. "Morning, madam," he said, his voice carrying easily in the still air. "Name is Nathan Nash. I am not looking for trouble, just passing through on my way to Leadville and saw your place here. Looks like you might be dealing with the same drought we have been seeing everywhere." Amelia kept the rifle pointed at the ground but did not set it down. "We are managing," she said, her voice carefully neutral. She had learned not to show weakness, not to let anyone see how desperate things had become. "If you are looking for work, I cannot help you. I am not hiring." Nathan shifted in his saddle, and she got a better look at his face. He was younger than she had first thought, probably no more than 26 or 27, with dark hair that needed a trim and eyes that were a startling shade of green even from this distance. He had a few days of stubble on his jaw and the kind of weathered look that came from years of outdoor work. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. They were kind eyes, the sort that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, which he was doing now in a gentle, non-threatening way. "Was not looking for work necessarily," he said easily. "But I can see you have got a herd there that needs moving, and unless I miss my guess, you are planning to drive them up into the high country where the grass is still green. That is a two-person job at minimum. 3 or 4 would be better. Doing it alone would be near impossible." "I said I am managing," Amelia repeated, but there was less conviction in her voice this time, because he was right, of course. She had been lying awake at night trying to figure out how to move 200 head of cattle into the mountains by herself. It was madness to even attempt it, but what choice did she have? If she did not move them, they would starve. If they starved, she would lose everything. Nathan seemed to read the calculation on her face. He swung down from his horse with an easy grace and took a few steps closer, stopping when he saw her tense. "Look," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "I do not know your situation, and I am not asking you to explain it, but I have been driving cattle since I was 13 years old. I am good at it. I can see you need help, whether you want to admit it or not. I am not asking for money. Just meals and a place to sleep until we get those cattle to wherever they need to go. Then I will be on my way to Leadville and you will never see me again." "Why would you do that?" Amelia asked suspiciously. "Nobody does something for nothing out here." Nathan's smile faded a bit, and something serious came into his eyes. "My sister," he said quietly. "She was left alone when her husband died in a mining accident. She tried to run their claim by herself, and she could not do it. Lost everything. I was in Wyoming at the time, did not even know what had happened until it was too late. She is back in Kansas now, living with our mother, but she should not have had to go through that alone. Should not have had to lose everything because nobody would help her." He met Amelia's eyes steadily. "So maybe I am doing this for her in a way, or maybe I just do not like seeing someone struggle when I have got the skills to help. Either way, the offer stands. Need a hand." Amelia stared at him for a long moment, weighing her options. Every instinct told her to be cautious, to send him on his way and figure things out on her own like she had been doing for the past 6 months. But another part of her, the practical part that had kept her alive and functioning through all of this, knew that he was right. She could not move 200 head of cattle into the mountains alone. She would lose half of them in the first day, and the rest would scatter across the high country where she would never find them again. This might be her only chance. "All right," she said finally, lowering the rifle completely. "But there are rules. You sleep in the bunkhouse, you keep your distance, and if I tell you to leave, you leave. No questions asked." "Fair enough," Nathan said, and the smile returned to his face, warm and genuine. "When do we start?" "Today," Amelia said. "We leave in 2 hours. The cattle are already weak, and every day we wait makes it less likely they will survive the drive." Nathan nodded and led his horses toward the barn. "I will get them settled and ready to go. You have got any other hands, or is it just you?" "Just me," Amelia said, and hated how vulnerable that simple statement made her feel. "Then it is a good thing I showed up," Nathan said cheerfully. 2 is a lot better than 1, even if we are still short-handed. We will make it work." Amelia watched him lead his horses into the barn, moving with the confident ease of someone who knew his way around livestock and ranch work. She realized she was still standing there with the rifle in her hands, her heart pounding harder than the situation warranted. It had been so long since she had talked to anyone besides the shopkeepers in Georgetown and the banker who kept sending her threatening letters about the mortgage. So long since she had accepted help from anyone. She took a deep breath and went back into the barn to finish saddling Daisy. Nathan was already untacking his own horse, a sturdy-looking bay gelding, and giving both animals water from the trough. He worked quietly and efficiently, and she found herself watching the way his hands moved, sure and gentle, with the horses. "What is the plan?" he asked without looking at her. "Where are we taking them?" "There is a valley about 15 miles north," Amelia said, focusing on tightening Daisy's cinch. "My husband and I used it last summer. High country, good grass, and a stream that runs year-round. The cattle can stay up there until the weather breaks and the grass comes back down here." "Sounds like a good plan," Nathan said. 15 miles is not too bad if the terrain is not too rough. We should be able to make it in 2 days with the herd moving slow. We will need to bring supplies for ourselves and the horses." "Already packed," Amelia said. "I was planning to leave today anyway." Nathan looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw understanding dawn in his green eyes. "You are going to do this alone," he said, and it was not a question. "Yes," she said simply. "That would have been suicide," he said bluntly. "Brave, but suicide." "Maybe," Amelia said, swinging up into Daisy's saddle, "but sometimes you do not have a choice. Sometimes you do what you have to do, and you pray that it works out." Nathan opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, but then seemed to think better of it. Instead, he just nodded and went back to his horses, getting them ready for the long drive ahead. Within an hour, they had everything prepared. Nathan had switched his saddle to a different horse, a lean sorrel mare that he said was his best cow pony, and they had loaded the pack horse with supplies. Amelia had brought food for a week, bedrolls, cooking equipment, and extra rope. Nathan had added his own supplies, including a surprisingly well-stocked medical kit and ammunition for both his rifle and revolver. They drove the cattle out of the corral just as the sun was fully clearing the mountains, flooding the valley with golden light. The herd moved sluggishly at first, reluctant to leave the familiar confines of the ranch, but Nathan and Amelia worked together to get them moving north. Amelia was impressed by how well Nathan handled himself. He seemed to anticipate the cattle's movements before they happened, positioning himself perfectly to turn back strays and keep the herd together. He also had a gift for reading the land, guiding them along paths that were easier for the weakened cattle to navigate. They did not talk much during the first hours of the drive. The work required too much concentration, and Amelia was grateful for the silence. It gave her time to adjust to having someone else around, to sharing this burden that had been hers alone for so long. But as the morning wore on and they settled into a rhythm, she found herself stealing glances at Nathan, wondering about him. He had said he was heading to Leadville, which meant he was probably looking for mining work or gambling opportunities. Leadville was booming right now, silver strikes making men rich overnight. It seemed strange that someone would delay that journey to help a stranger move cattle. They stopped briefly at midday to let the herd rest and drink from a small creek that was barely more than a trickle. Nathan produced jerky and hardtack from his saddlebags and offered half to Amelia. They sat in the shade of a cottonwood tree, eating in companionable silence while the cattle grazed on the sparse grass near the water. "How long have you been ranching?" Nathan asked eventually, his voice casual. 3 years, Amelia said. "My husband and I started this place from nothing, bought the land with money we had saved and built everything ourselves." "He is the one who disappeared?" Nathan asked gently. Amelia stiffened, wondering how he knew, but then realized it was probably obvious. A woman alone on a ranch, running cattle by herself, it did not take a genius to figure out that something had happened to her partner. "Yes," she said quietly. 6 months ago, Went out to check fences and never came back. We searched, but there was a storm and the mountains, they keep their secrets. I am sorry, Nathan said, and the sincerity in his voice made her throat tighten. That is a hard thing to live with, not knowing. Yes, Amelia said, surprised by how much it helped to have someone acknowledge that. Most people in Georgetown had offered platitudes or, worse, suggestions that Thomas had run off and abandoned her. But Nathan seemed to understand the particular cruelty of not knowing, of living in a constant state of uncertainty. Is that why you are doing this alone? Nathan asked. No family to help. Thomas's family is back in Missouri, Amelia said. They never approved of him moving west, and they certainly do not approve of me. My parents are gone, it is just me. Nathan nodded slowly. Well, he said after a moment, it is not just you today. Today you have got help. Something about the simple statement made Amelia's eyes burn with unexpected tears. She blinked them away quickly and stood up, brushing off her pants. We should keep moving, she said briskly. Want to get as far as we can before dark. They pushed on through the afternoon, driving the cattle steadily north. The terrain grew more rugged as they climbed into the foothills, and twice they had to navigate narrow passages between rocks that made Amelia's heart pound with anxiety. But Nathan proved his worth again and again, calmly guiding his section of the herd through tight spots while Amelia worked the other side. The cattle were tired and hungry, which made them docile, but it also meant they moved slowly. By the time the sun was sinking toward the western peaks, they had covered maybe 8 miles. Not as much as Amelia had hoped, but respectable given the condition of the herd. They found a decent camping spot in a hollow sheltered by pine trees, with another small stream nearby. Working together, they got the cattle settled for the night, hobbling the horses and setting up a simple camp. Nathan proved to be efficient at camp tasks, building a fire and getting coffee started while Amelia checked on the herd one more time. When she returned to the fire, he had laid out their bedrolls on opposite sides of the flames, respecting the boundaries she had set that morning. Found some wild onions down by the stream, he said, stirring something in a pot over the fire. Mix them with some of the beans I brought. Not fancy, but it will fill us up. Amelia sat down on a log near the fire, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. The day had been long and hard, and the emotional strain of having a stranger on her ranch helping her was more draining than she had expected. But there was something comforting about the fire and the smell of food cooking, about having another human being nearby after so many lonely months. They ate in silence at first, but then Nathan started talking, telling her stories about his work as a cowboy, about drives he had been on and places he had seen. He had a gift for storytelling, making even mundane events sound interesting, and Amelia found herself relaxing despite herself. She even laughed at one of his stories about an ornery bull that had terrorized an entire camp for a week before anyone figured out the bull was just lonely and wanted to be near the horses. "So what brings you to Colorado?" Amelia asked when he paused to refill his coffee. "You said you were heading to Leadville." "Yes," Nathan said. "Got a friend there who says there is good money to be made if you are willing to work hard. I have been wandering for a few years now, working ranches and doing whatever needs doing. Figure it is time to settle down somewhere, maybe save up enough to buy my own place someday." "Your own ranch?" Amelia asked. "Maybe," Nathan said, staring into the fire. "Or just a piece of land somewhere quiet. I am not looking to get rich, just want a place to call home." Something that is mine, you know. Amelia did know. That was exactly what she and Thomas had wanted when they came out here, a place of their own, a future they could build together. "It is a good dream," she said softly. "What about you?" Nathan asked. What are you going to do after we get the cattle to the high country? How are you going to manage the ranch alone? It was the question Amelia had been avoiding thinking about for months. I do not know, she admitted. Try to hire help, I suppose, if I can afford it. The bank is threatening to foreclose if I cannot make the next payment, and I do not know how I am going to do that unless I sell some of the herd. But if I sell too many, I will not have enough to rebuild when the drought breaks. That is a difficult position, Nathan said carefully. You thought about selling the whole place, starting over somewhere else. Every day, Amelia said honestly. But this ranch is all I have left of Thomas, all I have left of the life we built together. Selling it feels like giving up on him, like admitting he is really gone. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then said, Maybe holding on to the ranch is not about holding on to him. Maybe it is about holding on to yourself, to the life you wanted. That is not a bad thing. Amelia looked at him across the fire, surprised by his insight. Maybe, she said. I have not thought of it that way. They talked a while longer, the conversation drifting to easier topics, but eventually exhaustion caught up with both of them. Nathan banked the fire while Amelia did one last check on the herd, and then they retired to their respective bedrolls. Amelia lay awake for a long time, staring up at the stars visible through the pine branches above, listening to the sounds of the cattle settling and Nathan's steady breathing across the fire. It felt strange to not be alone, strange but not unwelcome. For the first time in months, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things might work out after all. They were up before dawn the next morning, eager to cover the remaining distance to the high valley. The cattle were restless, sensing the change in elevation and perhaps smelling the better grazing that lay ahead. The day proved more challenging than the first, with steep climbs and narrow trails that tested both their skills and their patience. At one point, a young steer panicked and tried to bolt down a ravine, and Nathan had to perform some impressive riding to turn it back before it got itself killed. Amelia's heart was in her throat watching him, but he handled it with calm competence, bringing the steer back to the herd without injury to himself or the animal. By mid-afternoon, they crested a final ridge and the valley spread out before them, exactly as Amelia remembered it. Lush grass, brilliant green against the brown of the drought-stricken lowlands, covered the valley floor. A stream sparkled in the sunlight, running clear and cold from the snowmelt still trickling down from the peaks above. The cattle sensed the grass and water and suddenly found energy they had not had in weeks, picking up their pace without any urging from their drivers. That is beautiful, Nathan said, pulling up beside Amelia to admire the view. You chose well. Thomas found it, Amelia said. He always had an eye for good grazing land. They drove the cattle down into the valley and watched as the herd spread out, immediately beginning to graze on the thick grass. The change in the cattle was almost instantaneous. They looked more alive, more healthy just from being in a place where food and water were abundant. Amelia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The cattle would survive. The ranch would survive, at least for now. Nathan and Amelia spent the rest of the afternoon setting up a more permanent camp and checking on the herd. They would stay here for a few days, making sure the cattle settled in properly and that there were no unexpected problems with the valley. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, they sat by the fire eating the last of the beans and watching the cattle graze peacefully. Thank you, Amelia said quietly. I could not have done this without you. I probably would have lost half the herd trying to do it alone. You are welcome, Nathan said, but I think you are tougher than you give yourself credit for. You would have found a way. Maybe, Amelia said, but I am glad I did not have to. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Nathan said, I have been thinking. About Leadville. Yes, Amelia said, trying to keep her voice neutral even as her heart did an unexpected skip. In the 2 days they had been working together, she had grown accustomed to Nathan's presence. More than accustomed if she was honest with herself. She liked having him around, liked the way he moved and spoke, the way he seemed to understand things without her having to explain, liked the strength and kindness she saw in him. Mining is dangerous work, Nathan said slowly, and crowded. Everyone rushing to Leadville looking for silver, most of them are not going to find it. I was thinking maybe there are better opportunities elsewhere. Such as? Amelia asked, hardly daring to hope. Nathan turned to look at her, his green eyes reflecting the firelight. Such as a ranch outside Georgetown that needs help. You said you cannot afford to hire anyone, but what if it was not about hiring? What if it was a partnership? Amelia's breath caught. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that you need help running that ranch, and I need a place to settle down, Nathan said. I've got some money saved, not a lot but enough to help with supplies and maybe make a dent in that bank payment. I know cattle, I know ranching, and I am good with my hands. I can fix things, build things. We could work together to get the ranch back on its feet, split the profits, build it into something successful. You are talking about a business partnership, Amelia said carefully. I am talking about helping someone who needs it, Nathan said. And helping myself in the process. It is a fair deal for both of us. Amelia wanted to say yes immediately, but caution held her back. You do not know me, she said. And I do not know you. What if it does not work out? Then I will leave, Nathan said simply. No hard feelings. But I think it will work out. We have worked well together these past 2 days. I respect your judgment and you seem to respect mine. That is more than most partnerships start with. Amelia thought about the empty ranch, about the months of struggle ahead if she tried to do everything alone. Thought about the way Nathan had shown up exactly when she needed him most, like some kind of miracle. Thought about the alternative, fighting a losing battle until the bank took everything and she was left with nothing. All right, she said finally, but on one condition. I remain the owner. This is still my ranch, still my land. You are a partner in the work and the profits, but the deed stays in my name. If things do not work out, I need to know I still have something. That is fair, Nathan said immediately. I would not want it any other way. Your ranch, your rules. I am just here to help. They shook hands on it, and Amelia felt the calluses on Nathan's palm, the strength in his grip, and something else, a warmth that had nothing to do with business partnerships. She pulled her hand back quickly, confused by the flutter of feelings in her chest. It was too soon, too complicated. Thomas had only been gone 6 months, and she was not ready to think about anything beyond survival and keeping the ranch running. But that night, lying in her bedroll and watching the stars wheel overhead, she could not help thinking about Nathan. About the way his smile made his whole face light up, about the gentleness in his hands when he handled the horses, about the kindness in his eyes when he looked at her. She told herself it was just gratitude, just relief at not being alone anymore. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. They stayed in the high valley for 3 more days, making sure the cattle were settled and healthy. During that time, Amelia and Nathan fell into an easy partnership, working together seamlessly and talking more openly than Amelia had talked to anyone in months. Nathan told her about his childhood in Kansas, about his family and the dreams he had carried west with him. Amelia found herself sharing things she had never told anyone, about her fears and her grief, about the nights when she lay awake wondering if Thomas had suffered at the end, or if it had been quick. Nathan listened without judgment, offering comfort when she needed it and silence when that was what she needed instead. On their last night in the valley, they sat by the fire later than usual, neither of them quite ready to end the day. The conversation had drifted into comfortable silence when Nathan suddenly spoke. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Yes," Amelia said, curious. "You think you will ever be ready to let him go?" Nathan asked gently. "Your husband, I mean. Do you think you will ever be ready to move forward?" Amelia was quiet for a long time, thinking about the question. "I do not know," she said finally. "Part of me feels like I should hold on to what we had forever, keep it alive in my memory. But another part of me knows that is not really living. That is just existing. Thomas would not want that for me. He would want me to be happy to build a life, even if he is not here to share it." "That sounds like a man worth loving," Nathan said softly. "He was," Amelia agreed. "But you are right that I need to let go eventually. I am just not sure how." "Maybe it is not about letting go all at once," Nathan suggested. "Maybe it is about taking small steps forward, accepting help when it is offered, opening yourself up to new possibilities, building something new while still honoring what you had before." Amelia looked at him across the fire, seeing the understanding in his eyes, and felt something shift inside her. Nathan was not trying to replace Thomas or make her forget him. He was offering her a different kind of future, one where she could honor her past while still moving forward. It was a gift she had not known she needed. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for understanding, for being here." "Where else would I be?" Nathan said with a gentle smile. They rode back to the ranch the next morning, leaving the cattle to thrive in their mountain valley. The journey back took only one day without the herd to slow them down, and they reached the ranch just as the sun was setting. The place looked exactly as they had left it, dusty and worn but still standing. Nathan unsaddled the horses and put them away while Amelia went into the house to start a fire and prepare a meal. It felt strange being back, strange and somehow different. The house was the same, but she was not. Something had changed in those 5 days, something fundamental. Over the next weeks, Nathan proved his worth 100 times over. He repaired the barn roof that had been leaking since spring. He fixed the corral fence that had been held together with wire and prayer. He helped Amelia with the endless daily tasks of running a ranch, from mucking stalls to hauling water to dealing with the chickens that she had neglected, while focusing all her energy on the cattle. He was good company, too, filling the house with laughter and stories when they took their meals together in the evening. But more than the practical help, Nathan gave Amelia something she had not realized she was missing: hope. His presence on the ranch made her feel like maybe the future was not just a series of obstacles to overcome, but something that could actually be good. She found herself smiling more, sleeping better, looking forward to each day instead of dreading it. The feelings that had started in the high valley grew stronger as the days passed. Amelia found herself noticing things about Nathan that had nothing to do with his skills as a ranch hand. The way his hair curled at the nape of his neck when it got too long. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. The way he always seemed to know when she needed space and when she needed company. She told herself it was too soon, that she was being foolish, that she was just transferring her need for Thomas onto the nearest available man. But her heart did not listen to those logical arguments. It was Nathan who finally brought things to a head. They had been working together for almost 6 weeks, and autumn was beginning to paint the aspens gold on the mountainsides. They had just finished a long day of cutting and storing hay for the winter, and they were sitting on the porch of the house watching the sun set behind the peaks. Nathan had been quieter than usual all day, and Amelia had been wondering if something was wrong. "Amelia," he said suddenly, "I need to tell you something." Her heart started pounding. "What is it?" "I did not come here by accident," Nathan said, not looking at her. I mean, I did not plan to stop at your ranch specifically, but I was not exactly just passing through either. I heard about you in Georgetown. Heard there was a woman trying to run a cattle ranch alone, and people were taking bets on how long before she lost everything. It made me angry, hearing them talk about you like that. So I rode out here to see if you needed help. Amelia did not know what to say. She had assumed their meeting was chance, a fortunate accident. To learn that Nathan had sought her out deliberately changed things, though she was not sure how. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. "Because I do not want there to be lies between us," Nathan said, finally turning to look at her. "Even lies of omission. And because I need you to know that what started as me wanting to help someone has turned into something else entirely." "What do you mean?" Amelia whispered, though she thought she knew. "I mean that I have feelings for you," Nathan said simply. "Real feelings. I know it is too soon, and I know you are still grieving your husband. I am not asking you to feel the same way or to do anything about it. I just needed you to know." Needed to be honest. Amelia's heart was racing now, her thoughts tumbling over each other. She should tell him it was impossible, that she was not ready, that she might never be ready. But instead she found herself saying, "It is not too soon." Nathan looked at her in surprise. "What?" "I have feelings for you too," Amelia admitted, the words coming out in a rush. "I have been trying to ignore them, trying to tell myself it is just gratitude or loneliness or anything except what it actually is. But I cannot ignore it anymore. I care about you, Nathan. More than I should, maybe, but I do." "Amelia," Nathan breathed and reached for her hand. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and strong, and Amelia felt like she could breathe properly for the first time in months. "I am scared," she admitted. "Scared of what this means. Scared that I am betraying Thomas somehow. Scared that I will lose you too." "I am scared too," Nathan said. "But I think maybe being scared means it is real, means it matters." They sat together on the porch as the last light faded from the sky, holding hands and talking quietly about their fears and their hopes. Nathan made it clear that he was not trying to replace Thomas, that he respected what Amelia and her husband had shared. Amelia tried to explain the guilt she felt, the sense that she was moving on too quickly, even though 6 months felt like an eternity when you were living through it alone. "There is no right timeline for this," Nathan said gently. "No rule that says you have to grieve for a specific amount of time before you are allowed to feel something for someone else. Your heart knows what it needs better than any calendar does." "When did you get so wise?" Amelia asked with a shaky laugh. "I am not wise," Nathan said. "I just know how I feel, and I know that life is too short and too uncertain to waste time fighting against something good." They did not kiss that night, both of them sensing it was too soon for that step. But they did sit together on the porch until the stars came out, holding hands and talking about the future. About how they would get the cattle down from the high valley before the first snow. About how they would make the bank payment and what improvements the ranch needed. About their dreams and their plans, now shared instead of solitary. The next weeks brought a new dimension to their partnership. There was a tenderness now in the way they interacted, small touches and lingering glances that said more than words could. Nathan began taking his meals in the house instead of the bunkhouse, and they would sit together in the evening, talking or reading or simply enjoying each other's company. Amelia felt herself coming back to life in ways she had not thought possible. The grief over Thomas did not disappear, but it changed, becoming something she could carry instead of something that crushed her. In late September, they rode back up to the high valley to check on the cattle and begin planning the drive back down to the ranch. The herd looked magnificent, sleek and fat from 2 months of good grazing. Amelia felt pride swelling in her chest as she looked at them. They had made it. Against all odds, she had saved her ranch. "We make a good team," Nathan said, riding up beside her. "Yes, we do," Amelia agreed and turned to smile at him. He was looking at her with such warmth in his eyes that it made her breath catch. "Amelia," he said softly, "I know we have been taking things slow and I respect that, but I need you to know that this is not temporary for me. This is not just about helping you through a hard time. I want to be here for the long term. I want to build a life with you if you will have me." Amelia's eyes filled with tears, but they were good tears this time. "I want that too," she said. "I want that so much." Nathan leaned over in his saddle and kissed her then, gentle and sweet, and Amelia felt like she was coming home after a long journey. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "So what does this mean?" Nathan asked. "For us, I mean." "It means we are partners in every sense of the word," Amelia said. "It means we build this ranch together and we build a life together. It means I am choosing to move forward, choosing happiness, choosing you." "Choosing us," Nathan corrected gently and kissed her again. They spent 3 days in the high valley, working with the cattle but also stealing moments to be together, learning each other in this new context. Nathan was patient and gentle, never pushing Amelia further than she was ready to go. But there was passion there too, a growing heat between them that promised a future full of love and joy. When they drove the cattle back down to the ranch in early October, it felt like a triumph. They had done what everyone said was impossible. They had saved the herd, saved the ranch, and found each other in the process. The cattle were in excellent condition, and Amelia was able to sell enough of them to make the bank payment and stock up on supplies for the winter, with plenty left over to rebuild the herd in the spring. Georgetown was abuzz with gossip when Amelia and Nathan rode into town together to conduct their business. People stared openly at the woman who had defied expectations and the cowboy who had helped her do it. Some of the gossip was unkind, speculation about the nature of their relationship and disapproval that Amelia had moved on so quickly from her missing husband. But Amelia found she did not care. Let them talk. She knew the truth of her situation, and she knew her own heart. The banker, a portly man named Mr. Daniels who had been pressuring Amelia for months, seemed almost disappointed when she walked into his office with the money for her payment. "Mrs. Montgomery," he said stiffly, "I must say, I am surprised to see you. I had assumed you would be unable to make this payment." "Then you assumed wrong," Amelia said crisply, counting out the bills onto his desk. "The ranch is doing fine, and it will continue to do fine." Mr. Daniels looked at Nathan, who was standing slightly behind Amelia. "And who might you be?" "Nathan Nash," Nathan said evenly, "Mrs. Montgomery's business partner." The banker's eyebrows rose, but he had the good sense not to comment. He counted the money, made a notation in his ledger, and handed Amelia a receipt. "Very well," he said. "But I must warn you that the next payment is due in 6 months, and I expect it to be made on time." "It will be," Amelia said confidently, and walked out of the bank with her head held high. They spent the rest of the day in Georgetown, purchasing supplies and fielding questions from curious townspeople. Some were genuinely happy for Amelia's success. Others were clearly waiting for her to fail. But with Nathan by her side, Amelia felt like she could handle anything. As they rode back to the ranch that evening, the mountains glowing pink and gold in the sunset, Nathan said, "You were magnificent today. The way you handled that banker, I thought he was going to swallow his tongue." Amelia laughed. "He has been trying to intimidate me for months." "It felt good to prove him wrong." "We proved him wrong," Nathan corrected. "This is a partnership, remember? How could I forget?" Amelia said warmly. "You remind me every day." That night, after the horses were cared for and a simple dinner was eaten, Nathan and Amelia sat together on the porch as had become their habit. But tonight felt different somehow, charged with possibility. "Amelia," Nathan said quietly, "I want to ask you something, but I do not want you to feel pressured. If you are not ready, just say so and we will not speak of it again." "Ask," Amelia said, her heart starting to race. Nathan took both of her hands in his. "Will you marry me? I know it has not been long and I know people will talk, but I love you. I want to spend my life with you, building this ranch and whatever else the future holds. Will you have me?" Amelia felt tears spill down her cheeks. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you." Nathan let out a whoop of joy and pulled her into his arms, kissing her soundly. Amelia kissed him back with all the love and hope and joy she had been holding in her heart, and for the first time since Thomas disappeared, she felt complete. They were married in Georgetown 3 weeks later in a small ceremony attended by the few townspeople who had been kind to Amelia during her time of struggle. It was not a grand affair, but it was perfect. Amelia wore a simple blue dress, and Nathan wore his best shirt and a new hat. They said their vows in front of the minister with such sincerity that even the cynical townspeople had to admit there was real love there. The ranch became truly theirs that day, not just legally, but in every way that mattered. They spent the winter making improvements, planning for the spring, and learning what it meant to be partners in all things. Nathan moved his belongings from the bunkhouse into the main house, and they made the bedroom theirs, filling it with new memories that slowly but surely replaced the painful ones. Their physical relationship developed naturally, built on trust and genuine affection. Nathan was patient and tender, making sure Amelia felt safe and cherished. For Amelia, being with Nathan was different from what she had shared with Thomas, but that did not make it less valuable. It was simply its own thing, its own kind of love, and she embraced it fully. As winter gave way to spring, the ranch flourished under their combined efforts. The cattle they had kept over the winter were healthy and strong, and they were able to purchase more to rebuild the herd. Nathan proved to be not just a skilled ranch hand, but also a shrewd businessman, finding buyers for their cattle and negotiating prices that were better than anything Amelia had managed on her own. But more than the material success, it was the emotional richness of their life together that made Amelia truly happy. She and Nathan worked hard, but they also made time for joy. They would ride out together in the evenings to watch the sunset. They would lie in bed on Sunday mornings talking about their dreams and their plans. They would dance in the kitchen while cooking dinner, Nathan humming off key songs that made Amelia laugh. In late April, Amelia realized she had not had her monthly cycle in quite some time. At first, she thought it was just stress or the hard work, but as the weeks passed and other signs appeared, she realized with a mixture of joy and terror that she was pregnant. She told Nathan on a warm evening in May, sitting on their porch and watching the cattle graze in the lower pasture. "I have something to tell you," she said nervously. Nathan looked at her with concern. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I am more than all right," Amelia said, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "I am pregnant." The look on Nathan's face was something Amelia would treasure forever. Pure joy, wonder, and love all mixed together. "Truly," he breathed. "Truly," Amelia confirmed, and then found herself being swept up in his arms and spun around while he laughed with delight. "We are going to have a baby," he said, setting her down gently and cupping her face in his hands. "We are going to be a family." "We already are a family," Amelia said. "But yes, we are going to expand it." The pregnancy was not easy, but Amelia was strong and Nathan was attentive. He took on more of the physical labor, insisting that Amelia rest when she needed to. They hired a young man from Georgetown to help with the heavier ranch work, and the three of them worked together through the summer and into the fall, preparing not just for winter, but for the new life that would be arriving soon. Amelia's baby was born on a cold January night in 1880, just over a year and a half after Nathan had first ridden into her life. The birth was long and difficult, but when Amelia finally held her son in her arms, she felt like her heart might burst with love. He was perfect, with dark hair like Nathan's and a loud, healthy cry that filled the house. "What should we name him?" Nathan asked, looking down at his son with undisguised awe. Amelia thought about it carefully. She had considered naming the baby Thomas if it was a boy, as a way to honor her first husband. But looking at this child, this new life she and Nathan had created together, she realized that was not right. This was not a replacement or a do-over. This was something entirely new. "William," she said. "William Nash." "William," Nathan repeated, trying it out. "I like it. William Nash, welcome to the world." The first years of William's life were busy and chaotic in the best possible way. The ranch continued to thrive, allowing them to hire more help and make even more improvements. They built a new barn and expanded the house, adding rooms for the growing family they hoped to have. Nathan was a devoted father, doting on William while still being a full partner in running the ranch. In the fall of 1881, Amelia gave birth to twin daughters, Lily and Rose. Nathan was beside himself with joy, holding both babies at once and declaring himself the luckiest man in Colorado. Amelia, exhausted but happy, watched her husband with their daughters and felt a contentment so deep it was almost painful. This was what she had dreamed of when she and Thomas first came west: a thriving ranch, a loving family, a future full of promise. The memories of Thomas never fully faded, and Amelia did not want them to. He had been part of her story, an important part, and she honored that by sharing stories about him with her children as they grew. Nathan never felt threatened by these stories. He understood that Amelia's capacity to love Thomas did not diminish her love for him. Love was not a finite resource, but something that could grow and expand. As the years passed, the ranch became one of the most successful in the Georgetown area. The cattle business boomed, and Nathan and Amelia's reputation for fair dealing and quality livestock spread throughout Colorado. They were respected members of the community, and Georgetown's initial skepticism about their relationship had long since faded. William grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved the ranch and everything about it. He could often be found following his father around, asking endless questions about cattle and horses and the land. The twins were more adventurous, always getting into mischief and making their parents laugh with their antics. In 1884, Amelia gave birth to another son, James, and their family felt complete. The house that had once echoed with loneliness was now filled with laughter and love. Amelia would sometimes pause in her work and just listen to the sounds of her family around her. Nathan's deep voice telling the children a story, William practicing his reading out loud, the twins giggling over some shared joke, baby James babbling happily. These were the moments she treasured most. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Nathan surprised Amelia with a trip to Denver. They left the children with trusted friends in Georgetown and spent 3 days in the city, staying in a nice hotel and eating in restaurants and acting like young lovers without a care in the world. On their last night, as they sat together in their hotel room, Nathan pulled out a small box. "I got you something," he said, almost shyly. Amelia opened the box to find a delicate gold necklace with a pendant shaped like a mountain. "It is beautiful," she breathed. "I had it made special," Nathan said. "The mountains brought us together in a way. Your cattle needed the high valley which brought me to you, and these mountains, they are home now." Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. "I love it, and I love you." "I love you too," Nathan said, fastening the necklace around her neck. "More than I ever thought it was possible to love someone. You gave me everything, Amelia. A home, a family, a purpose. You gave me a life." "We gave each other a life," Amelia corrected, echoing his words from so long ago. "This is a partnership, remember?" Nathan laughed and pulled her into his arms. "How could I forget? You remind me every day." They made love that night with the tenderness and passion that came from years of knowing each other deeply. Afterward, lying in Nathan's arms, Amelia thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. The grief and struggle, the loneliness and fear, the unexpected arrival of a cowboy who had changed everything. She thought about Thomas and the love they had shared, honored and remembered but no longer a source of pain. She thought about her children sleeping safely in Georgetown, about the ranch waiting for them at home, about the future stretching out before them full of possibility. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan murmured against her hair. "I am thinking about how grateful I am," Amelia said, "for all of it, even the hard parts because they brought me here." "I am grateful too," Nathan said, "every single day." They returned home to Georgetown to find the children had been perfect angels, according to their friends, though Amelia suspected that was more politeness than truth given the twins' propensity for mischief. But everyone was healthy and happy, and the ranch had run smoothly in their absence. Life settled back into its comfortable rhythm of work and family and love. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own challenges and joys. There were drought years and years of plenty, times when money was tight and times when it flowed freely. Through it all, Nathan and Amelia faced everything together, their partnership growing stronger with each passing year. They added to their herd, improved their breeding stock, and became known throughout Colorado for their high-quality cattle. William grew into a capable young man who shared his father's gift with animals and his mother's business sense. At 18, he was already taking on significant responsibility for running the ranch. The twins, now 14, were beautiful and spirited, constantly pushing boundaries but also showing signs of their parents' strong character. James, at 10, was the peacemaker of the family, always trying to smooth over conflicts and make everyone happy. One evening in the summer of 1889, as Amelia and Nathan sat on their porch watching the sunset just as they had done countless times before, Nathan said, "Do you ever think about how things might have been different if I had not stopped that day?" Amelia thought about it. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but I cannot really imagine it anymore. This life we have built together, it feels inevitable somehow, like it was always meant to happen this way." "I feel the same," Nathan said. "Like every choice I made, every road I took was leading me to you." Amelia reached for his hand, fingers intertwining in the familiar, comfortable way of long partnership. "I was so lost when you found me," she said softly. "So alone and scared, I thought my life was over." "And now?" Nathan asked, though he knew the answer. "Now I know it was just beginning," Amelia said. "The life Thomas and I started, it was good and I do not regret it. But the life you and I have built together, Nathan, this is everything. This is more than I ever dreamed possible." Nathan raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "You are everything to me, Amelia. You and our children, this ranch, this life. I would not change a single moment." As the sun sank below the mountains and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, they sat together in contentment. The sounds of their children inside the house drifted out through the open windows, William helping James with his homework, the twins arguing cheerfully about something inconsequential. The cattle lowed softly in the distance. A cool breeze carried the scent of pine and grass and earth. This was their life, hard-won and deeply cherished, built from struggle and loss, from a chance meeting and a simple question. Need a hand? Amelia had needed a hand, and Nathan had offered his freely. In return, she had given him a home and a family and a purpose. Together, they had created something that was greater than the sum of its parts, a love that had grown from friendship and partnership into something profound and enduring. The ranch that had once been a burden was now a thriving enterprise. The woman who had been broken by loss had been made whole by love. The cowboy who had been wandering had found his home. And the family they had built together was happy and healthy and full of promise for the future. As the years went on, that future unfolded in ways both expected and surprising. William eventually married a sweet young woman from Georgetown and brought her to live on the ranch, adding another generation to the family business. The twins found their own paths, Lily becoming a teacher and Rose marrying a rancher from a neighboring property. James surprised everyone by showing an aptitude for numbers and eventually handling all the financial aspects of the ranch. Nathan and Amelia grew older together, their hair turning gray and their faces showing the lines that came from years of hard work and frequent laughter. But their love never diminished. If anything, it grew deeper and richer with time, seasoned by shared experiences and weathered by the storms they had faced together. On a warm spring day in 1895, Amelia stood in the same spot where she had first seen Nathan riding toward her ranch 17 years earlier. She was 51 now, a grandmother several times over, and the ranch was more successful than she had ever imagined possible. Nathan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, as he had asked so many times over the years. "I am thinking about the day you rode up and asked if I needed a hand," Amelia said. "I am thinking about how one moment can change everything." "It changed everything for both of us," Nathan agreed. "Best decision I ever made, stopping at this ranch. Best decision I ever made was saying yes," Amelia said, turning in his arms to face him. "To your help that first day, and to your proposal, and to building this life with you." Nathan kissed her, and even after all these years, Amelia felt the same flutter of warmth she had felt the first time. This was love, real and lasting and true. This was partnership, built on respect and trust and genuine affection. This was home. They walked back to the house together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the rest of their years would bring. The mountains stood eternal around them, the same peaks that had witnessed their first meeting and had watched over every step of their journey since. The ranch spread out before them, alive with activity and promise. Their family waited inside, spanning 3 generations now, all of them benefiting from the love that Nathan and Amelia had created. That night, as they prepared for bed, Amelia looked at the photograph on their dresser. It showed the two of them on their wedding day, young and hopeful and so much in love. They looked different now, older and weathered by time, but that love had never faded. "You have any regrets?" she asked Nathan as they lay together in the darkness. "Not a single one," Nathan said firmly. "Everything I have done has led me here to you, to this life. How could I regret that?" Amelia snuggled closer to him, resting her head on his chest and listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I do not have any regrets either," she said. "Not anymore. Everything happened exactly as it was meant to." "Even the hard parts?" Nathan asked gently, knowing she was thinking of Thomas. "Even the hard parts," Amelia confirmed, "because those hard parts taught me how strong I could be. They taught me that love is not something that happens once and then is gone forever. Love is something that can find you again, sometimes when you least expect it, sometimes when you need it most." Nathan tightened his arms around her. "I am glad love found you again," he whispered. "I am glad it found us." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, content and secure in the knowledge that they had built something truly special. Their ranch would continue to thrive long after they were gone, passed down through generations. Their children and grandchildren would carry on their legacy, not just the material legacy of land and cattle, but the legacy of love and partnership and determination. The story that had begun with a woman alone and struggling, with cattle dying and hope fading, had become a story of triumph and love and family. The cowboy who had ridden in and offered a hand had become so much more than a hired helper. He had become a husband, a father, a partner in every sense of the word. And the woman who had been broken by loss had been made whole again, not by forgetting what she had lost, but by embracing what she had found. Their love story was not the typical tale of love at first sight. It was better than that. It was a story of two people who had found each other when they needed it most, who had built something real and lasting through hard work and mutual respect, who had chosen each other every single day and would continue to choose each other for all the days they had left. As the years continued to roll past and Nathan and Amelia grew older still, they remained devoted to each other and to the life they had built. They became beloved figures in Georgetown, known for their kindness and their willingness to help neighbors in need, just as Nathan had once helped Amelia. They never forgot what it was like to struggle, and they made sure to extend helping hands to others whenever possible. In their later years, they would often sit together on their porch in the evenings, holding hands and watching the sun set behind the mountains that had brought them together. They would talk about the past and the future, about their children and grandchildren, about all the blessings they had received. And sometimes they would simply sit in companionable silence, needing no words to communicate the depth of their love and contentment. When Nathan died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78, Amelia grieved him deeply, but not with the same desperate, lost feeling she had experienced when Thomas disappeared. This grief was different, softer somehow, because she had been blessed with so many years of love and happiness with Nathan. She had known the gift of his presence every single day, had built a life with him that was rich and full, and she carried those memories like treasures in her heart. She lived for several more years after Nathan's passing, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, watching the ranch continue to flourish under William's capable management. And when she died at the age of 82, it was with a smile on her face and Nathan's name on her lips. They buried her next to Nathan on a hill overlooking the ranch, with the mountains visible in the distance. Their gravestone was simple but beautiful, bearing both their names and a single inscription chosen by their children. Partners in life, in love, and in all things. Together always. The ranch continued on, passed down through the generations, each one carrying forward the legacy that Amelia and Nathan had created. And sometimes, when the sun was setting just right and the wind was blowing gently through the pines, people would swear they could feel the presence of two souls still watching over the land they had loved so much, still holding hands, still together, still home. This was the story of Amelia Montgomery and Nathan Nash, a story that began with a woman raising cattle alone and a cowboy who rode in and offered a hand. But it became so much more than that. It became a story of love conquering loss, of partnership overcoming adversity, of two people finding each other against all odds and building something beautiful together. It was a story of the American West in all its harsh beauty and infinite possibility. And most of all, it was a story of hope, the hope that even when everything seems lost, even when you are alone and struggling and cannot see a way forward, help might be just over the horizon. Love might be just one more sunrise away. And life, in all its messy, complicated, beautiful glory, might be preparing to surprise you in the best possible way. The ranch still stands today, a testament to what two people can build when they work together, when they believe in each other, when they choose love over fear and hope over despair. Visitors to Georgetown can still see the original house, expanded and updated over the years, but fundamentally the same structure where Amelia and Nathan raised their family. The mountains still stand eternal in the background, and cattle still graze in the valleys below. And if you listen carefully on a quiet evening, some say you can still hear the echo of a question that changed two lives forever. Need a hand, followed by the only answer that ever mattered. Yes.